Today, I have some great news for you.
Are you sure?
I was wrong. I said before the latest Tarkir Dragonstorm set that no new cards from it would be breaking into standard. It's been that way for the last two sets, honestly. And outside of Stock Up and Ride's End, there really hasn't been much that's broken into the meta, really since Duskmaw. I thought Aggro was just too fast for 3 colors to work, and Beanstalk was there to really outvalue any new type of late game engine. Because what I foolishly thought was that any new deck, particularly in a 3-color set like Tarkir, the only type of new deck that could really exist was something in between both of them. Because it wasn't like Aggro could get any more lethal. How wrong I was. Well, the monkey's paw has curled, and a new card has broken into the scene, and broken several metagames with it. In the space of 24 hours, this card went from $2 to over 17, and it's become a new staple of any red aggro. But don't just take my word for it. Cori-steel has been out for a few weeks, and has since had dozens of standard top 8s across Magic Online tournaments, and winning several of them. For those who don't know, these tourneys aren't free either. People are paying to enter these and get smoked by this new card. This recently even peaked at the Standard European Regional Championships, where in a nearly 1,100 player event, Izzet Cori-steel was the most played deck, beating out the big 3, making up nearly 20% of the entire metagame. And to top it all off, made 5 out of the top 8 slots in the finals. The finals itself even being a mirror between Cori-steel and Cori-steel. It's safe to say that this card has truly captured standard. But don't play standard? Don't worry, you can find it in modern, legacy, and vintage too. It's even pretty good in commander. But what does it do that makes it so punchy? Cori-steel is the latest in aggro tools that rewards you for playing your deck in a certain way. Cards like this aren't particularly new to Magic, but as I covered in what made mice aggro so efficient in a previous video, historically, aggro decks have never really had access to synergy and speed together. Previously, to rush down your opponent, you had to slap together all the cheap burn spells and haste creatures. Well, Cori-steel actually just rewards you for doing just that, almost like the glue that holds it together. At 2 mana, this equipment, contrary to its card type, isn't really used to equip creatures, unless it's of course for the creature it makes for free. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you make a 1/1 with prowess that this will attach itself to, making it a 2/2 with prowess, trample, and haste. These 3 keywords together create a creature able to continually grow, can attack immediately, and can't really be reliably blocked without still taking damage. Reminder that this is only a 2-mana card, meaning that it's very feasible to fit this into any aggro deck with small spells that's looking to try and cast 1 to 2 extra spells every turn. You can very easily slam this down on turn 3 and play a 1-mana cantrip to immediately activate it. Therefore, it probably shouldn't be a surprise that the best decks using this are Izzet decks with just 1 and 2 mana cards and cantrips, and there's even a few Gruul and mono red lists experimenting with this too. You can basically run a deck filled with 1 and 2 drops. They can be spells, they can be creatures, enchantments. There's a lot that really works with the steel cutter. It's here that your real reason to run this card shows. How do you stop an aggro deck beating you down? In plain terms, you remove their threats, right? That's how it's always historically been. For aggro decks in standard, these are generally creatures. The 3 mice are the poster children of this. If you can't answer the first mouse, it might be getting Monstrous Rage or Double Strike, and you're probably about to lose the game. So historically, people have run spot removal as the answer to deal with this kind of aggression. If you can continually answer the mice, burn them out of cards, and slow them down enough to get your Beezer or Zur Overlord combo or Pixie Otter army out, you've probably won the game. How do you answer Cori-steel though with 1 removal spell? You can remove the monk it makes. You avoid the damage this turn, buy some time, but next turn you're going to have another one take its place. Do you have another removal spell? Maybe you do. Do you have another one for the next monk it's going to make? Remember, this Izzet aggro deck is casting cantrips and small spells that generate it more cards to then cast in the future. Do you remove the steel instead of the monk? Artifact hate is less common in standard at the moment, with enchantments kind of being the non-creature permanent that people are trying to go for. Usually, a lot of decks find that they can only hit one or the other. Unless you're green and red, hitting an artifact isn't particularly easy to do at the moment. What do you have to cut for the artifact hate too? Do enchantment heavy decks like Pixie and Domain then start wrecking you as well? And when you remove the steel cutter, the monk is still there. Remember, this is a 1/1 creature with prowess. If we've seen anything from the Otters made by Stormchaser's talent, the next turn it's probably going to be a 4/4 when it hits you. What I'm trying to say is that Cori-steel is a rare card that can't cleanly be be answered in a deck where not completely answering every threat they have can often mean the end of the game for you. For comparison, before Nowhere to Run was printed, it was really common for aggro decks in red-green to run Snakeskin Veil. This was a way to basically bait out a removal spell, effectively counter it, and then keep the creature and deal the damage. Oftentimes, just doing this once was enough for the aggro deck to win the game outright. Cori-steel creates a similar situation where you answer the creature, another one takes its place, or you have to remove the thing generating the creatures, and you still have a threat that needs to be dealt with. Stormchaser's Talent, like I mentioned earlier, is another popular and powerful card that also happens to be in this Izzet aggro deck for a similar reason. It's a threatening creature and an enchantment in one. While the enchantment takes longer to bring online compared to Steel Cutter, once a player gets enough mana, it can be looped really easily with something like This Town Ain't Big Enough, and needs to be answered by any mid-range deck or control deck looking to avoid getting outvalued. The only card in current standard at all that can deal with these kind of cards is Temporary Lockdown, which will rotate out later this year and can be answered with a Spell Pierce, which that is a deck happens to run, or in other colors, like green, they can run Pick Your Poison or Paw Patch Formation to remove the enchantment and bring back the cutter. In our mice video, I joked about the diversity of aggro being able to go red-green or red-white. Well, it's time for us to cordially welcome red-blue to the aggro table. And oh look, red-black is here too, because these are all decks in aggro able to play Cori-steel. I'm so glad Standard is truly flourishing in a meta where you can play all 5 colors with red aggro. Jokes aside though, in all honesty, despite my last few minutes of focusing on its power, this new Izzet deck is actually really fun. It isn't a mice deck with a coat of blue paint, it's actually a fresh new aggro deck, which has actually been very refreshing. We'll see how long this lasts though, but for now I'm enjoying playing with and even against it. This deck burns through cards very fast and relies on cards like Opt and Sleight of Hand to rack up spell triggers. It even actually runs Stock Up, which was historically thought to be a mid-range or control card, but it's the perfect card for a deck like this. For fans of Spellslinger decks like myself, this deck has honestly been an absolute dream to play. You even get to run Slickshot Show Off, which is one of my pet favorite cards, which until now I'm kind of shocked hasn't really been able to see much play. You also get to run Spell Pierce and plenty of other tricky interaction spells, which I always really enjoy playing too. I've genuinely had a lot of fun with this deck and have been able to experiment with even offbeat cards such as Draycatcher and Thundertrap Trainer, which actually play really well in it. I even made this deck in paper and brought it for a standard event, which I won, and only one person salted off at me. Longer term, what probably will need to happen though is plainly bans. I don't know yet if Cori-steel needs one. I am probably leaning towards yes, or if it's some of the cards that support it, like Monstrous Rage, again. Although some of the top performing Steel Cutter decks at the regional championship in Europe didn't even run Monstrous Rage. I think even with rotation coming, one thing Wizards are going to have to come to terms with is there are too many cards sticking around that will still define existing decks. If you look back at some of the most impactful sets, we have obviously got Dominaria United, which famously has Temporary Lockdown, as I mentioned earlier, and Shieldred, but I think of sets like Eldraine, Bloomburrow, and Duskborn, which are sets that aren't rotating. These kind of define the format at the moment. I really struggle to see how Final Fantasy is going to cut through and any future sets beyond that because of that. Ultimately, I do understand people not wanting the format to change. There is a level of reluctance to have to constantly fork out money to buy new cards that I totally get. Equally though, I would argue that new sets do deserve some time in the spotlight. Not every card in a set has to be good, but you know, in Aether Drift we've had 2 or 3 cards that have actually seen play in a set of hundreds. Foundations, similar story, and even Tarkir. If it wasn't for Cori-steel, Tarkir would have been a very, very similar story too. In fact, it arguably still is. None of the 3 color cards is really seeing play from the set. I would also argue that new cards do deserve a chance in the spotlight. You can ban the right cards without completely invalidating people's decks that they've spent money on. Banning Monstrous Rage absolutely in no way makes red go away. I think red is very resilient, has a lot going for it. It's definitely sticking around post-rotation if nothing changed. What I worry is that with the Final Fantasy set coming up soon and all the new players coming in to play the game, the last thing I'd want is for a new player to pick up the game only to see that the set that was made for them, targeted for them, has no real good cards in it. Or the cards that are good are basically relegated to Commander only, and not even the format that they were made for. We don't need every card to be good enough, but maybe more than one of each set. Duskmourn was such an awesome set to me because all these new cards could see play, and as a brewer, I enjoyed trying to solve that format because it felt like so many of the new tools were relevant. I digress though. Though my last few standard vids have been around problematic cards, I can't stress enough that the format is my favorite, and it does scratch that competitive itch I've missed from Commander, while also making me a better Commander player. More on how standard made me a better Commander player in a future vid. Till then, I'm going to be starting streaming again soon. I am an avid Mythic rank player, and I'm looking forward to starting posting some VODs of some new decks I brew, as well as just some general stuff if you just want something to listen to while you get on with your day. Till then, see you in the next one. Cheers.